We're in a practice session still, Erin.
Oh, sorry. Ooh, okay,
Okay, are we live?
we're live.
All right. Hello and welcome to the Amherst Conservation Commission special meeting on May 9th, 2025. The time is 12:02 p.m. We're holding this special meeting to take care of business from our previous meeting because we didn't have a quorum for voting. So we have 1 hour to get through several items of business. I understand Alex would like the floor for a minute, so I'm going to give that to him, but we're not going to spend any discussion on this. This is a motion read by Alex and he's looking for a vote, so go ahead, Alex.
Okay. I move, without discussion at this time, that the commission make time on a future agenda to consider updating its wetland regs to change the 50-foot no-build buffer to 75 feet and reduce the 20% allowance in the 100-foot buffer to 10% or do away with it completely, and any other updates that Amherst staff or commissioners may recommend. So the intention is to, if I need to read it again, that's fine, is to just simply have a vote whether or not to put this on a future agenda. The intention is not to discuss it at this time. It just took too long.
Thank you, Alex. Okay, I'm gonna go for vote calls. Rachel?
Who seconded it?
Oh, sorry.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Andre. Rachel?
Sorry, I'm not so good at thinking about this on the fly. I don't know.
Yeah, well, so he has proposed several things, but ultimately the motion is whether or not to put this on a future agenda for discussion. So we are voting to discuss the issues that Alex has put forth.
So
And just for the record, this doesn't make a change to our regulations with his motion. We would have to hold a public hearing to change our regulations. This is just to put a discussion item on the agenda. Sorry to interrupt.
Andre?
chairperson, can't you just put it on the agenda? Why do we need a vote for it?
I mean, we are gonna put it on the agenda.
Okay.
So
there's
good
no
point,
need for
Andre.
this,
Why don't we
no need
just-
for this.
I-
We're wasting time.
Chair, I can answer that. I have brought this up several times in the past and it's never made it to an agenda. So I'm making a motion that it go on the future agenda, that's all.
Okay, well, for some perspective, Erin and I have been talking about a more organized approach to this. So we have been moving towards putting this and other things on the agenda, but I'm fine with also just voting for the show of support from other commissioners that this is a topic that we'd like to discuss at a future meeting. So with that, I'm just gonna do a call for vote. Rachel, I can come back if you want more
Yeah,
time. Okay, yes or more time?
come back. I'm
Okay.
processing.
Andre.
I'm gonna abstain. I don't know much about it, but yeah, I don't have a problem you putting this on an agenda in the future, but the wording that you just gave, Alex, I missed half of it. So abstain.
Okay, Jason.
Aye.
Bruce.
Aye.
Rachel.
Aye for discussion, I guess. Yeah.
Alex.
Aye.
Okay, I'm an aye. Again, this is just to put it on a future agenda for discussion, and he included the items he listed, but also other items that we might want to talk about. So basically revisiting our regs. It's always a healthy thing to do every once in a while. Okay, with that, we're going to move into our agenda. So we have other business, which is the request to amend order of conditions for 214 Pomeroy Lane, DEP number 0890685. So we may have a attendee with us. Erin, before we bring anyone in, do you want to just give us a 5-minute update? And so how this will work is I'll give 5 minutes to staff, so Erin, Jock, and then 5 minutes for the project applicant, and then commissioner questions, comments. And I understand, Andre, you might have done a site visit, so I'd like to hear from you too. You're on mute, Erin.
Sorry. So this is, we have an order of conditions at 214 Pomeroy Lane. There was a previous plan approval out there, and an order of conditions which was issued back in September of 2021 for agricultural activities on the sort of northern delineated area of the site. And the commission had had some associated conditions associated with the agricultural use in those areas, which included some bounding, some signage, some time of year restrictions associated with natural heritage and endangered species habitat. Since that time, and there was also a barn to be constructed, a shed and a greenhouse shown on the plan for approval, as well as the demo of a previous barn that had been on the site. I'd say early spring when I was driving by, I noticed that there had been some clearing in the front of the property, which hadn't been covered by the permit. So I reached out to the landowner. We've had, I think, 2 site visits since we made contact with the landowner, and just sort of clarifying how to resolve this. So the applicant owner has submitted a request to modify the existing order of conditions to include additional clearing up to a 5-foot setback to the wetland boundary for agricultural use in the front part of the property, which is south of the barn. So I can pull up a plan once Sabina comes in to present, but that's the basic overview of it.
Thanks, Erin. And so for some context, today the commission will be deciding whether we will be amending the order of conditions if it's a minor amendment, or we will be asking for a reopening of the public hearing. So how this qualifies in that respect. Alex, I'm going to try and go in order that I said we would, but is there something quick and clarifying, or can you?
No, I was just gonna ask Aaron, for those who were not on the site visit and may not have seen them, you might bring up the pictures you took.
Yeah, maybe we could start with the overall aerial plan, Erin, just for some visual,
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
that's totally fine.
and then we'll bring Sabina in for 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, that's great. So can you guys see the plan set?
Yeah,
Okay.
It's a little small if you can make it.
Okay, let me try to zoom in. It's a little hard to capture the whole thing on one screen. And if it's okay, I'll just annotate just to show. So this is the barn that was rebuilt. There was a greenhouse approved here and a shed approved here. And then up in this northerly field, there was approval for this field to be used for hay, row crops, grazing, composting. And there's also an NHESP heritage polygon which cuts through here. So there's also bounding and blueberry bushes in the middle of the field. So there are some time of year restrictions for this section here. But so those are the pieces that were approved as part of the original order of conditions. And then the clearing activity is down in this location and extends actually down. There's a buffer, wetland buffer along the road. So there's some clearing along the road as well. So those are the areas that the applicant is requesting to modify the permit to include.
After the fact.
After the fact, yes, correct.
And the clearing did include brush, trees, stumping, etc. Okay, let's bring Sabina in if you don't mind.
Sure.
Hi, Sabina, welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I think we can hear you. So please just take 5 minutes to sort of explain your intent with this and your vision for what you're asking for in terms of the amendment to the notice intent. And if you could include your plans for agricultural use, that would be helpful to us too.
Sure. Thank you for for having this meeting. It really helped me to be on the 9th rather than the 14th. So it was great to hear that you had this intermediary period that you could meet. So to answer your questions, let's see. First of all, it was not my intent to break any letter of intent. The barn was pretty much the focus of our 2-year endeavor to get the initial barn down that was dilapidated and to put up this. It was supposed to be a state-of-the-art building. It is a state-of-the-art building, but it was to match Biden's Inflation Reduction Act. So we kind of did the geothermal and the solar and the energy efficiency. So it was a huge endeavor. Very successful. I'm not sure if we'll still get the grants for the what we qualified for the Rural Environmental Alternative Energy Program, REAP, and also for the program in Massachusetts that covers energy efficiency also, which we got a $30,000 grant for. So that's to say that we were really focused on that. And it was absolutely not my intent to do something that was not in keeping with what we had spent so much time doing, which is what you have in front of you. And so what I didn't notice is the lack of arrows between the barn, newly developed barn, but also where the old barn is. You can see that all the way down to Pomeroy Lane. I did not notice ever, and I've looked at this map for various reasons for the last 2.5 years, that there was no arrow between the barn and Pomeroy, indicating that there was also a 5-foot wide no-till zone there. So that's completely true, that I did not know that was not a no-go zone, if you will. And so just to kind of explain what we're doing in terms of agricultural, we're spending a lot of effort getting the fruiting rooms ready in the barn, which is our agricultural produce this year, in addition to the lumber in the upper half of the 52 acres. You can call it lumbering. We're not paying anything and they're not paying us. It's just a wash in terms of getting wood out of there that we're doing with the Audubon Society. It's a forest management plan written for us, but with the Audubon Society, to do a clearing in the middle of this little area to be able to allow for those nesting birds that nest on the ground only, and that's their only habitat. So if they don't have that, they go extinct. I mean, I don't mean to sound crazy, but it's true. And so we're doing that, and also the wetlands you see to the east, and the wetlands between the pond where we have beaver and a house. That whole area, we've cut down the alders that have grown very successfully on this beautiful farmland, and we had to cut them down to allow the baby alders to come up. And that's the protection that those particular kinds of birds need. And they are you call them the birds that are songbirds that do the migration. So that's just to kind of give you the sense of which ones they are, the warbler and so forth. Anyway, so our intent, just to finalize what I'm trying to say today, is that our intent is to work on both the hayfield to the north and this area in the next year, after we've kind of gotten some obviously some sales in mushroom production in the barn, but also the setup of oak tree shiitake mushrooms in the forest. So those things we're stabilizing, and we want to then do, well, we have to still decide. I think it's going to be hay. I'm also very excited about trees that are nut trees like hazelnut and walnut. So I can't say for sure, but what we would do is not use any fertilizer, no pesticides. That is for sure. I mean, that's the whole point of this whole 52-acre property. It's like to say you can do farming and conservation at the same time. So we could absolutely promise you that there would be, and we could write it down, that there would be no use of anything that is destructive in any way to the insect colonies and birds or anything.
Sweetie, it's been 5 minutes, so if there's any,
And
okay.
I think I caught it all.
Okay,
yeah.
so it sounds like you're not clear how you would use the new cleared area for agriculture all this time?
Exactly. I need about a 9-month window to determine, have some more conversations with people that are doing this all over. There's also a kind of tree that you can grow, and I forget now what it is, but it actually allows for the mushrooms that grow underground, not chanterelles, but I don't think it's morels. But anyways, those to grow in the habitat of those trees. So I really think that I'll need 9 months to a year. Is it something you need? If I can assure you that any usage is going to be no pesticides, only good for the environment, no fertilizers. Is there
Yeah,
anything?
well, we'll get into those kind of criteria, but I think that the original order of conditions specified that the land must be in agriculture. So for example, it can't be lawn or clear.
No.
Yeah, okay.
Lawn is
Okay.
least productive of all things that you can have in a conservation/agricultural site. So no.
Okay, thank you. So I'm gonna go to commissioners now for questions and comments, but thank you for presenting that. Andre.
Yeah, thanks. A question or just to try and get some timeline going, and checking to see that I understand it right. Aaron, so first we had an NOI back in 2021 with some order of conditions, and it was for that northern area, that the fields, right? The next thing after that was in at least as far as relevance, is that you drove by and you saw some cutting that was done in front.
Yeah, I mean, there's a longer history, I think, of the site. So I think there was originally an order of conditions prior to the 2021 filing. And there was also another activity that prompted the 2021 filing. So there's a history that's a little bit longer here that we're not delving into, but from 2021 forward, yes, that's the history.
Okay. And so so then you saw that there was something done, and after that you contacted the landowners?
Correct.
Okay, and it was after that that the amendment was filed, and they notified you that they wanted to perform agriculture in the front?
Correct. Yeah. So I think when I reached out to Sabina to say I noticed this cutting that was happening in the front of the lot, Sabina had expressed to me that at that point she felt that the order of conditions had approved that. And I looked at the plan and the approved order of conditions and said, well, that's not shown on the plan. So then we ended up meeting on site and discussing it. And I said, in order to resolve this and make it legal to do the agriculture here, we have to amend the permit to highlight those areas as part of the agricultural. And just for the context of it, the area where the agricultural was approved is bounded by fence posts and a no-mow zone around the wetland. So this area never included that.
And finally, how far into the wetland buffer zone was the cutting?
It varies depending on the entire extent of the area that was cut. I would say there's some areas where there's maybe 10 or 20 feet of buffer that's still there. In some areas, it's pretty close up to the wetland boundary, if not on the wetland boundary. And there's a couple locations right up to Pomeroy Lane where there's actually cutting in the wetland. So, but the wetland is still flagged all the way around.
And the area right up to Pomeroy Lane, is that arable? Is that something that can be used in agriculture, or is
The wetland itself, no, definitely not.
where they cut? I mean,
Yeah, I'm not sure what the purpose of the cutting in that frontage area was, but there was some cutting in the wetland there.
all right. I just wanted to get a full picture of this. Thanks.
AI.
We'll handle commissioners' comments first, then we'll come back to.
Oh, okay, it directly relates to that issue that Andre just brought up, so I thought we could resolve it right away.
Which issue?
The issue of cutting the ash that was between the area we did cut and Pomeroy Lane. This area, yes, it was it's a wetland, but it had dying ash, and so we killed those. We just took them down to the core because they're going to die.
Okay,
They're dying.
they were ash. That's relevant. Thank you. Commissioner, questions, comments?
Are there-
Alex?
Yeah, a couple of things. When we were there, the farmer who was raising mushrooms was present. And we asked him what he thought the area down on the, if you're facing Pomeroy, it would be on the left of the driveway, down close to Pomeroy. He said he would grow garlic, I believe.
Oh,
And he said that was a good place for garlic as well as the field. And he saw himself planting garlic in the field. And he thought it would be good in dry years because it's wet. So anyways, that was, I don't know if that's part of the plan. I didn't read anything about that. But as we walked around, there was a lot of activity on the right side of the driveway towards Pomeroy, towards the stream. There was a whole bunch of pine trees down, and it occurred that I at the time I wasn't familiar with the documents that had been written, but the one that was written by NRCS talked about shrubs and birdland, bird habitat, and then I came away from the site visit wondering if it might be a good idea to go through the documents that have been written and adjust them or explain what's been going on. So I'll just say that. That's all.
So could I, would it be okay if I jumped in for a second?
Sure. Rachel, I think I saw your hand up, so I'll go to you.
Oh, well, if it's better for Rachel to go first, that's fine. I just wanted to say, there is a stewardship plan associated with some of the cutting we observed. So that Sabina referenced that, but there's a forest stewardship that's approved, like a DCR forest cutting plan. So some of the cutting we saw is associated with that.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Go ahead.
Rachel didn't get to go.
Yeah, I just had a question about the rare species. I know you had mentioned there was an area that had been delineated as protected and no mechanical mowing in the summer months. The map we have doesn't really show the area at the front of the property. Is that area also rare species habitat protected? And was that reviewed by Natural Heritage?
Yeah, so to answer your question, Rachel, there is some estimated and priority habitat at the front of the site. And I can show you, I don't think that so there's two things I'm going to share with the commission. So just to answer your question, Rachel, this is an HESP polygon,
Okay.
and I'm just going to turn it on and off and toggle it so you can see there's a marked boundary there that on the aerial image you can see that they're managing that area differently than the remainder of the site. The other thing that I wanted to share is not opening, and I don't know why, so bear with me while I try to get it to open, is the forest stewardship plan, which it shows the areas of the site where there's associated forest cutting that's been approved through the forest management plan. So that's I don't know why it's not opening up. Maybe it's really large. But anyways, it shows that there's a cutting area and the areas that are excluded from that plan, basically.
Which isn't coincident with the area that we're talking about today. So that's
Correct. Yep,
nearby,
that area.
but yeah.
Yeah, that area
Okay.
was excluded. The area where
Okay.
the cutting is happening was excluded from the forest cutting plan, but it is outside of the NHESP polygon, I believe.
Okay.
Bruce,
Can you go back to the natural heritage map?
Yes.
So now just show the barn, just circle the barn.
Yeah, let me grab the annotate. Hold on. The barn is here.
Okay, the area, and then show the area we're talking about.
Okay, so, and I'm going approximate on the wetland boundary, like let's say the wetland boundary kind of flanks like this and comes back around like that. And then there's a wetland boundary that extends in here and the wetland boundary kind of comes around like that as well. Something like that. I mean, it's approximate. But some of the ash tree clearing that Sabina was referencing is in this location. There's also some clearing that occurred in this location. And then there's this clearing as well, this
Okay.
location.
So from an agricultural point of view, we're talking about the section on the right of the driveway.
Yes.
Okay.
and there's yes. For the clearing, it also happened adjacent to the road in those wet areas. Okay, so we're talking about the addition of a new management area to the NOI, which wasn't included in the first NOI. Okay, let me just finish, Andre. And whether this constitutes as a minor administrative change or whether or not commissioners would like to see a more formal amendment and public hearing open. Andre?
Thanks again. So for the original NOI, there were, I mean, there was a plan or there was a plan for agriculture that was submitted. Is that correct, Aaron?
Yes, correct.
Have we received anything like that for the front area now that we're looking for an amendment? Because it seems like no.
So what we received was the NOI plan, and then we also received the forest management plan, and I'm not sure if they have a USDA farm management plan or not. But the only plans that I have are the initial plan and the forest stewardship plan. There was a requirement in the original order of conditions for an annual monitoring report. So there was an annual monitoring report that was submitted to us from the gentleman who did the original permit filing, had completed it. I can't, and I'm drawing a blank on his name right now, but so like in the report, there was, a very comprehensive, I'll say, sort of accounting of the activities that had been conducted on the site. And that was one of the things during the compliance check-in that I did with Sabina, was to say we never got one from 2024. So there was a couple documents that were submitted to us, which provided sort of a bulleted list by way of a monitoring report for this year, or for last year rather.
Okay. So I'm just going to put out that we're kind of getting an application for an amendment after not straight before the work was done, but after a town employee drove by and noticed it and put them on notice. But this new request for an amendment doesn't have any plan for agriculture. We don't know what's going to be planted. There's been and then it kind of seems like a reason after the fact, if you would, or it has that feeling, and it's factually that's what happened is. So, and in addition to that, I would say that cutting the cutting next to Pomeroy Lane in the wetland with the with kind of a pretty nonchalant reason of there were ashes there, so we decided to kill them or cut them. I believe is I just don't see. I think it should be a little bit better planned. The amendment. That's where I'm going to leave it.
Thanks, Andre. Alex?
When Sabina was talking, she said she needed some time to put things together. And in following up on what Andre was just talking about, maybe it would be a good idea if she worked with Erin and we granted some time for her to put things together, working with Erin, including reconsideration, if she must, of the plan that was put together with NRCS, because NRCS isn't going to be around. And if any NRCS money was involved, that may not be available anymore. Since we don't have something actually to consider and move on, vote on, I'm suggesting that we grant time for her to put that together.
And are you suggesting that she does that in the form of a minor administrative change application or an amendment?
I would rather see something more formal. There seems to be quite a bit going on site. And I would leave that, I'd look to Erin for some advice on that, but it sounded like Sabina wanted to reconsider everything that she's put together so far and put a package before us.
Okay, thanks, Alex. Bruce?
So I would not favor an administrative amendment.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Bruce?
I'm more or less in agreement with Andre and Alex. I was also on the site visit. The one thing I would add is that given the history of all this, I would like to see twice annual monitoring reports rather than just once.
Thanks, Bruce. So I think, Rachel?
I just wanted to clarify, administratively, this permit was issued in 2021. Has the project received a certificate of compliance?
No.
Still open.
Yep,
Okay.
and we had 2 permit tolling periods, so it would have actually expired, but the governor did do one 480 some odd day, I don't know the exact, 462
Yeah.
or something, some random permit extension length for the pandemic, and then there was a second extension as well, which I believe this permit would apply for both.
Okay.
So I believe the permit is still valid if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks, Rachel. So it sounds like we're moving towards advising a formal amendment. And I guess the other option would be a new NOI, but since this permit's open, or informal amendment would be a
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I
fine.
guess, you know, Sabina, we can check in offline. I think that maybe some additional narrative about potential future agricultural activities would be helpful for the commission to better understand, and maybe some suggestions, like, for example, maybe what my idea was maybe that we install similar bounding that was done in the northern field in this location, so that there's like sort of a bounded buffer zone area that will be clear to anybody who's doing work out there. And then I had another thought. Well, I mean, I think one of the questions is the plan cuts off where you can't see down to Pomeroy Lane. So maybe we could put some consideration into how to include those areas if you're hoping to include, you know, closer down to the roadway. But it sounds like the commission wants a formal administrative process, so that's going to require a little conversation offline. But in the meantime, I think it would be a good idea to just cease doing activities in that buffer zone that's in that location until the formal amendment is filed and you get approval on it, if that makes sense.
And Sarah, and I do want to just draw attention to the clearing, the tree removal in the wetland. Normally we would handle that with something like an emergency certification. So I just want to point out that that happened and we haven't really resolved that that's out of compliance. So yeah, so maybe again, Erin, we can roll that into something and talk about some mitigation measures, but mostly not working in there anymore. Okay. So I don't think we need to vote on this. I think we've given our guidance to the applicant.
I'd like to have time to comment.
Okay, how about 1 minute comment?
Okay, I'm seeing a lot of knowledge among all of you, and I admire you. I know you know the law, and you're really caring. On my side, I feel like I am striving since 2019, having spent $1 million on a piece of land that's a lot of wetlands. And the purpose was to save it because they were going to develop it. And we grew up next door, which is where I am right now. And I'm saying that you need to get some farmers on your group. Maybe next year I will apply. You are seeing everything so much from a conservation point of view, which I think you can't deny what I'm doing is also conservation. However, you're not seeing that there's also farming. Amherst is saying they're so in support of maintaining farmland, and you're just not representing that for the town.
Okay, Sabina, we're the Conservation Commission and our job is to uphold the regulatory
Yeah.
laws. So I
But
want to point out that we
being
are
regulated.
hold
My-
on, I want to support that. I want
It's
to
just
point out that
very-
Sabina, thank you. I want to point out that we are working with you to make what you've done, which is out of compliance with the state and local wetland bylaws, to make it legal. And we are working with you to come up with a plan, which you have not provided us, what you're going to put in with agriculture. And that's something we need to see. So we do work with farmers and we're trying to make this site in compliance with all the laws that we have to work with. We are not anti-farmer and we're just trying to help you be legal about your activities, which we're going to do. Okay. Thank you for joining us. And you and Erin can talk offline. Do you mind dismissing Sabina, please, Erin? Thank you. Okay. Bay Road, emergency septic tank.
Yes. So we received a request for an emergency certification to replace a failed septic system. And I checked with the Board of Health as well as with Dave Z, and a emergency certification was issued. There was visible damage at the surface, sinkholes around the septic system, et cetera. I also inquired with Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program to verify that the work was exempt under the NHESP regulations. So an emergency certification was issued. There was mitigation because there's a nearby pond, and the order of conditions was issued back on, let's see, April 29th to expire 5/29. So we just need a ratification of that emergency cert for that work.
Looking for a motion to ratify emergency certification for the septic system.
I so move.
Second it.
Rachel on the motion, Jason on the second. Rachel,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Bruce. You're muted. Aye. Andre,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, request for certificate of compliance, 285 Sunderland Road, DEP number 0890628.
Yes. So there was recent work to mitigate a beaver situation out there, as well as to repair the access road and remove some trees that had been partially damaged by the beaver and basically girdled. So I was out there, that work was completed, the flow control device was installed, there was uh, stabilization measures, and the work had been completed. So this is a complete request for a complete certificate of compliance on the project, which I support issuing.
Andre?
Yeah, thanks. I was there for the initial or one of the site visits. And all the pictures that I'm seeing look like they did everything that they said they were going to do, and looks like they did a good job of it. I did have a question on one of the photographs. There's the straw wattle that looks like it's kind of off to the side, off down on the I would say the north side of the dam, or west side of the dam.
Yes.
Is that something that matters, or I just needed to ask about that?
Yeah, so initially the straw wattle was right up against the edge of the road, but some of the work that they did to install the pipe extended beyond the road boundary. So I asked them to move the straw wattle a little bit to the south in order to allow the south and north on either side, in order to allow that area where the culvert was replaced, that disturbance basically be protected on either side. So that's why the wattle looks a little out of place there.
Okay, yeah, otherwise, other than that question, I have no issues with it.
Thanks, Andre. Looking for a motion for this one?
What I moved to well, let's see.
It's 285 Sunderland Road.
Sorry?
285 Sunderland Road,
So-
certificate of compliance.
All right, I move to approve the certificate of compliance on 285 Sunderland Road.
Second.
Andre on the motion, Alex on the second, Rachel,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Andre,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
I'm an aye. Okay, last one. The UMass Graduate Housing DEP number 0890694. So I think maybe Alex and Andre were, Aaron, is this the graduate housing that we had a mitigation plan for several years back? Several of us were sitting commissioners at that point.
Yeah, it was, yes, it's right along the Tan Brook. And so you guys might recall that this request actually came in, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago, but when it came in, the certificate of compliance did not include the mitigation area. So because there's associated protection of the mitigation area, I had asked them to come back with a plan set that incorporated the approved mitigation area. So we now have that identified on the as-built plan, so that will be in perpetuity, that mitigation plan. And that's why it was a little bit delayed in the granting or in the consideration by the commission, because I needed that plan with the mitigation area identified.
Thanks, Aaron. Any questions about this one?
So, and I would, oh, sorry, I jumped in front of
Go
Rachel.
ahead. Go ahead, Aaron.
I was just going to say, if we're going to issue a certificate of compliance, there are some ongoing conditions that are associated with it. So just to issue a complete certification, but noting that they're still required to follow the ongoing conditions in the order.
And can you just briefly list those?
So it would be the items like the protection of the mitigation area in perpetuity, so that area along the Tan Brook. It also includes like their operation and maintenance plan. So they have required operation and maintenance associated with the operation of all the storm water that was installed for the development. And I would ordinarily have a really neat and tidy list of all those for you, but because it's been so crazy, I don't.
Yeah,
But
that's
there are perpetual conditions which are listed in the order. So those are the ones that we want to make sure
Yeah.
remain as part of the order of conditions, or part of the
I'm
certificate
glad
of
to hear
compliance.
that the mitigation area will have an eye on it. Rachel.
Yeah, I had a question about the as-bills. Were we requiring topography as part of the as-built requirement or was it just the utility structures and wetlandages?
I believe it was the structures, all the buildings, the pavement, the stormwater structures, and the mitigation area were what we asked for.
Okay, I guess looking for a motion to approve this certificate of compliance for UMass Graduate Housing.
So it would be a complete certificate of compliance with the ongoing perpetual conditions.
So moved.
Second,
Bruce on the motion, Alex on the second, Rachel,
Aye.
Alex,
aye.
Bruce.
Aye.
Andre,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
I'm an aye. Okay, I think that's it. Public comment, if there's any public comment, please raise your hand. Bruce?
Well, I'll wait for the public.
Okay, we'll give them a minute.
Seeing none. I just wondered if, Aaron, the 4 compliance report things from May 5th memo that you also included,
Mhm.
like every one of them is kind of wonder what's going on there a little bit. So is there any further update or things we should do about any of those?
That's a great question, and I hadn't actually intended to put the compliance report on this agenda, but let me just jump on that really quickly. It'd take me just a second to get into the folder.
First one's
and I'll-
170 University Drive.
Yes, so there's 2 on here, 170 University Drive and 433 Northeast Street, where we're expecting after the fact notices of intent for work that was done without permits. I've conducted site visits, I've been in communication with the owners, and I have sent them information, and they are aware that they need to file notices of intent. So that's basically where it stands. I gave them, each of them, 30 days to respond back to us with either the notice of intent application or a prospective date of when the notice of intent application would be submitted. So we'll be getting an update from them within 30 days of when I communicated with them on each of those items. For 47 Olympia, that issue has essentially been resolved, but they were dewatering the foundation hole over the erosion controls into the wetland buffer, and the water was moving down into the wetland. So I gave them a notice of non-compliance and basically told them they needed to clean up all that material, and that in the future they needed to contact me for approval of their dewatering setup, and that if they did that again, that it was going to result in a stop work.
I was curious about that one, Aaron.
Yeah.
Where are they dewatering to? Because I assume this week has been necessitating that.
They were dewatering to the east side of the property. So yeah, not towards the roadside, but towards the back of the property. It's where they were doing this on 47 Olympia.
And now they're putting it where? Not there.
Not there. They were told that if they're going to do it, they have to create basically like within the footprint of approved limit of work is where they can put their dewatering. They can't do it beyond that boundary, particularly not on the wetland side. And they haven't contacted me. I think they actually got the foundation poured prior to
Good.
this
Okay.
rain. So I think it has helped a little bit to get the concrete in the ground. And then 214 Main Street, this is really sort of like what I would describe as a kind of a nothing burger. It's more just keeping you guys informed. I observed that there had been some recommendations. So first off, we were delinquent on the reports. The reports didn't come to me for 2 months. When the reports came in, there was an issue identified. 2 months worth of reports, it was identified on the first month, and on the second month it wasn't covered. So I went out and looked at it to see if it had been addressed. And the catch basin at the front of the property was full of sediment, and so it hadn't been cleaned as the monitoring report had identified needed to be done. And there was also silt coming down the driveway. So I reached out to them, told them they needed to correct it immediately. The next day it was corrected. So they addressed it right away, but it was, that's one of those things. This is why we have monitoring reports to make sure that every month or every week, these issues are identified and they're being corrected immediately after, and the timing of them is really important. So, but I review all of them, and for the most part, I think our system of monitoring is working really well. So it's just, it takes a little time to you'll see in the upcoming May 14th folder how many monitoring reports we have. We have a lot of sites under construction. So it's busy.
Yeah, thanks for keeping an eye on things out there. And okay, I see no public hands up, so I think we're good to adjourn.
Vote to adjourn.
Second.
I think I'll give it to Andre. Rachel,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Andre,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. All right, thank you so much, everybody, for making time to take care of this, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Thanks,
thanks all.
everybody.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.
Bye.